now listening to The Couch on 24/7 Miami with your hosts, Chubby Dubby, Clem December,
Big Clem. December, it's Clem time.
and your boy Coleman.
Coleman, I had the most absurd nightmare. I was poor and no one liked me.
Let's go.
We'll do it live. We'll do it live. Okay.
Welcome back to The Couch, ladies and gentlemen. We are coming live on this fabulous Tuesday before Thanksgiving from the Pembroke Pines campus of Connecticut School of Broadcasting. Myself in my headphones, but that's okay. We're going to just keep on going. I'm here with my co-host, Mr. Matt Lawson. How you doing today?
Doing very good. Very good. How's your headphones sound now?
A little bit better.
Okay.
We are going to get into some NFL action. We are going to discuss the lowly Dolphins. We've got some segments for you. We've got the return of W Knows All, even though our fabulous friend W is not with us today. He's not dead. He had a prior engagement. So let's get right into it, I guess.
Miami. No, I'm just kidding.
Uh,
No time for that. I don't know what to say, man. It's every week it's the same thing. We have the same conversation every week.
It seems like it's not even a different radio show.
Right.
You could tune in at any point after any game and say, is this week 7 or is this week 11? Or is this,
Seen one game, seen them all.
But if you remember incorrectly, I said last week that this was going to be a Dolphins game, that they were going to win. They were going to get to 5-5. They were going to give everybody a bunch of false hope,
I would be coming back into the studio saying we're back.
Yes.
But that's not what happened.
That is not what happened.
It was a decent game. Despite the score, it looks like it's a 30-20 finish, even though they kicked a go-ahead field goal with 4 seconds left. They still ended up with another touchdown.
Right.
So if you didn't watch the game, the score is a little misleading. It didn't start out great. Jay Cutler threw 3 interceptions in his first 12 attempts. And then I don't know if they yanked him or he got a concussion.
Right.
Apparently he's in the concussion protocol right now.
Quote marks concussion.
So concussion or 3 picks. One of those two led him to exit the game. Matt Moore came in, proceeded to lead a little comeback, got it tied up 20-20 on a deep ball to Kenny Stills, which was pretty nice. But then the defense allowed Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Matt Fitzpatrick,
I believe, is a golfer.
Maybe. He went to Harvard, by the way. Nobody ever mentions that.
Yeah, he's a Harvard grad. So give him a little more credit. The loss, and despite 4 in a row, the Dolphins are still in the 8th seed. So back of the last wild card spot.
To get to what? The playoffs?
Yeah.
Talk about playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me?
So yes, I'm sure Adam Gase probably feels like Jim Moore right now. Thinking, are you kidding me? Playoffs? Like, we're not a playoff team, but yeah, they are right there in a seed. There's still 6 games left, so I would imagine if they won the rest of their games, they still probably own their own destiny, considering they're only 1 game out of 6th. I'm sure Baltimore and Buffalo's ahead of them and Tennessee's ahead of them will probably slip up somewhere. So you got to imagine if you win the rest of your games, now you got the Patriots twice still, and the team that we can never get past for some odd reason, the Bills. We can never beat the freaking Bills. So we got 4 of our last 6 games are against the Patriots and the Bills. But yeah, I mean, technically, I would say we own our own destiny. If we won the last 6 games, we should get in the playoffs.
But I would say to that, what exactly is the point? What is the point of getting to the playoffs with a team that you know is not going to go anywhere? It's the same thing that happened. It's not exactly the same thing that happened last year, but remember last season? Oh, we beat Pittsburgh in the regular season where we won them for the playoffs. You know what I mean? And then they just got handily dealt with. The last time that they made it to the playoffs, even though it's a different regime and it's different teammates. Chad Pennington, 10-6, first time the Dolphins make it to the playoff in forever. And what happens? Baltimore just absolutely annihilates them. Basically puts Pennington into retirement, annihilates the shoulder. If you make it to the playoffs, win out the rest of their games, and make it to the playoffs, all it's doing is hurting their draft position because they're not going to do anything.
Okay, but the only way that they're going to have a good draft position is if they lose the rest of their games and finish with only 4 wins.
That's what I want.
So, but that's no fun, and you can't build like there's nothing wrong with going to the playoffs and losing a game. I mean, it's something to build on. At least we could go into next year. Okay, in Adam Gase's first 2 years, he's been to the playoffs. Now, playoffs are kind of a long shot right now. And yes, it does stink to finish 8-8 and always pick at 15 or 16.
It's right where we're headed. I think it's probably going to be worse than that, though, to be honest with you. So,
but listen, draft picks, I mean, remember Tom Brady, 199, Russell Wilson in the 3rd or 4th round. Like, people forget, if you hit on your draft picks, it doesn't matter where your draft pick is if you hit on them.
I agree with that, but there are also the trend lately that NFL teams have been taking is moving up to the top of the draft to take who you think is going to be your overall quarterback. So you have, even though what's his name, Deshaun Watson went later than a lot of people thought, but like Cleveland passed on him. Then you have the year before, you have Carson Wentz and Jared Goff. Those teams had to move up to number 1 and number 2 to be able to take those guys because everybody said, hey, and the thing is that they position to where if they go up to number 1 or number 2 in the draft, they take somebody. If the person doesn't end up panning out, then they're bad again. 3 years later, you figure out that the guy sucks, and then you try to move to the front of the draft again. The Dolphins don't do that.
Right. Okay. Well, that is
going to fall into a Tom Brady again.
Okay, but look at Russell Wilson. Look at there's a handful of guys in the league that weren't drafted number 1 or number 2, and you just mentioned that is the downfall with drafting 1, 2, or 3. Drafting a quarterback up there that doesn't pan out. That sets you back 3 years.
Right, you have to start over again. But
and so that's why I don't say, oh, it's so bad to draft at 15, 16 every year because you can find good players. Deshaun Watson was there at 15 or 16 last year. You know what I mean? Russell Wilson was there at the beginning, in the middle of the 2nd round in 2012. Those guys are there. You just got to find them. And obviously,
and you have to be a competent organization.
Okay, but look at you don't fall into Tom Brady. He's not the only one. Kurt Warner was undrafted.
Things happen like that for organizations that have proven themselves to be competent, which the Dolphins have not in the last 15 to 17 years.
Okay, fine. And the Patriots weren't really competent until Tom Brady got there.
Right. And now they've been on a run for the majority of my adult life.
Right. So quarterbacks and good coaches, make you look competent. You're not going to look competent unless it's kind of like the chicken or the egg. It's like, oh, incompetent organizations don't fall into these guys, but these guys make organizations competent. So
a little bit. It's a little bit of both. But you see Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, obviously these two, like if you were to take one away from the other one, then I think you would I don't know. I think if you take Tom Brady away from Bill Belichick and give him somebody else, but you throw in Matt Castle and he's serviceable, he's fine, he gets a contract and then goes somewhere else and he stinks. Jacoby Brissett,
Garoppolo. It's Bill Belichick more than Tom Brady, I would believe. Brady has a lot to do with it, though.
Yeah, but then so you see in other situations where, like, say for the Packers, Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy. He has Aaron Rodgers. Obviously,
MacArthur.
He looks like a really good coach. So you have all of these other coaches that branch off, one of which came to the Dolphins, Joe Philbin. It's Mike McCarthy. This guy's got to be a genius, and his friends got to be geniuses too. Nope.
Right, because Aaron Rodgers is keeping them afloat.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's hard to really gauge whether, in that sense, it's hard to gauge, like, do you think that Adam Gase is a good coach? I don't know.
We don't know.
I have no idea.
We don't know if anyone is a good coach except for Bill Belichick. Tomlin's a good coach. I don't know if Sean Payton's a good coach. Sean Payton has only had one good playoff run where he won a Super Bowl. Other than that, I can't remember. I don't know how many NFC championship games he's been in. I mean, Bill Belichick's the only coach that we know that is really good. Pete Carroll's pretty good considering the Seahawks are just always competitive, and I don't remember the last time they missed the playoffs.
I don't know.
But Sean Payton has missed the playoffs here and there. Mike McCarthy is obviously a nobody without Aaron Rodgers. It will be interesting to see Bill Belichick will let his career go on past Tom Brady. I think he'll be like, I don't want to be exposed. I'm just going to retire when Tom does.
Maybe. I mean,
because you don't want to be exposed as a fraud if Tom leaves and then you go like 5-11 for the first time in 17 years.
Yeah, but I think his resume, nobody's going to be saying fraud. I don't think
fraud.
But yeah, so next week the Dolphins they travel to Foxborough. They're facing New England's #1 passing offense, 4th highest scoring offense in the league, 29 points per game. Where do you think Miami is in scoring?
Last.
They've made it up one spot. They're up to 31st.
31st. Nice. Progress.
Those 20 points,
step by step,
elevated them to 15.7 points per game. 0.7 points ahead of the Cleveland Browns, who are dead last at 15 points per game.
Hey, the numbers from this game don't look too bad. Matt Moore came in 17 of 28, 280, a touchdown. Damian Williams carried it 10 times for 78 yards.
He broke a 70-yarder, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah.
Is that all in one carry?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. Stills 7 for 180 and a touchdown, and Juice 6 for 95 and a touchdown. And Parker and Thomas both had 4 catches each. So, I mean, the offense wasn't as anemic as it's been all year. I mean,
it was slightly better. It's 5 points better than their average, which is, it's okay. It's fine. But like I said, just general, like, my overall outlook on the season is just it's not great. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that they're going to be going anywhere. It's not that I've necessarily, I don't think that Adam Gase is a bad coach. I don't think anybody needs to get fired. It's just, it's not working. Like, whatever's happening right now is not working. So, and that generally tends to happen if your starting quarterback goes down. If anybody's able to salvage a season after, their starting quarterback goes down, then it's a miracle.
It's the Patriots.
Yeah. I mean, right. But even then, they didn't make the playoffs.
They didn't make the playoffs, but they went like 11-5, but they didn't make the playoffs.
I think it was 9-7.
9-1.
We were like 10-6,
no.
Something like that.
Okay,
you were still a youngster.
Anyways, around the rest of the league, story on Sunday was the start for Nathan Peterman over Tyrod Taylor. He proceeded to throw 5 interceptions in his first 14 attempts. Similar to Jay Cutler's. Jay Cutler wasn't as bad, only an interception every 25% of the throws.
It was all in the first half, too.
Peterson was better than 33% interception rate. But they benched him quickly. Tyrod Taylor came in and played pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they were down 40-7 at halftime when Tyrod came in. And the Bills won the second half, actually, points-wise. But so, yeah, that was funny. Not sure why they made that call. I don't think Tyrod Taylor hasn't been the worst quarterback in the league. The Bills were still going into this week in the 6th spot at 5-4. So it was an odd move, and then they just really had their foots shoved in their mouths. Nathan Peterman was not ready to be on a field, and that did not look good.
I think it makes the coach look worse than anybody else. Like, Peterman's a rookie. You don't know that he's going to be able to go in there. The Chargers are not a terrible defense. You know what I mean? Like, they've got a good secondary. They've got some people back there. Coach look really bad. So this happens. Tyrod had a bad game the previous game. He got benched. Peterman came in relief of him. He decided, okay, like, and the thing is that Tyrod is a free agent after this season. He's obviously going to look to get paid. If the Buffalo Bills don't feel like they're going to be the ones that want to pay them, then I can kind of understand where that's, you know, the thought process behind starting somebody else. If you think that you're going to move on, then you move on, and that's the way that it is. But when you throw him in there and he does that, it's like, I don't understand. You know what I mean? Like, he was obviously not ready. But then he comes in afterwards and he says, there were some plays I know he wants back. There's also some plays where you'd say that he was pretty darn good, and he still has yet to decide whether or not Peterman or Tyrod is going to start next week.
I agree. I totally agree with the idea of finding out what you have. Sorry, I keep turning that up.
Yeah, stop it.
I agree with like finding out what you have in a guy, but that often tends to lead to like that makes me think you're throwing in the towel, which again is the same thing that, you know, when the Dolphins traded Jay Ajayi, it felt like a move that you're throwing in the towel on the season when you're still in playoff contention, and that was the Bills. 5-4 in the sixth spot, going up against a Chargers team that you could beat to, you know, keep your ground in the AFC playoff picture, and you're going to make a QB change to a rookie that you don't know anything about. And, you know, I've heard on Levitard's show, and I've heard in other places, people bring up stats. Tyrod Taylor doesn't turn the ball over. He's one of them. He's like, you know, top 3 in the league in quarterback rushing yards since he's entered the league. He's got one of the best completion percentages on downfield throws. He's very good thrower down the field. He just hasn't played like a guy that needs to be benched. So it's an odd move. It's an odd move when you consider how amazingly it blew up in their face.
And it's just it's one of many odd moves in that the Buffalo Bills are doing this year. Like, so if you're going to throw in the towel, why did you trade for Kelvin Benjamin 2 weeks prior to that? You know, like, just because like you lost a couple of games, and I don't. That's why it's questionable. It's like I don't necessarily think it's throwing in the towel, obviously, to try to remain competitive. But I mean, you're throwing a rookie to the wolves and say, I think it. Honestly, I think it boils down to the fact that
week 11 is not when you find out what you got in your rookie.
I mean, if you think that you're out of the playoffs, then that's when it is. Then you throw them in there and you see what's happening.
Yeah.
But that, again, you know, that's pretty much giving up on the season. But whatever, it's the Bills. They can do whatever they want to. Any other games around the league this weekend that like caught your attention?
Yeah, the Vikings-Rams game was, you know, a battle of two of the NFC kind of, you know, powerhouses right now. Not powerhouses, but they got good records. And the Vikings kind of dominated that game. They were at home. I'm not so surprised by it. The Rams are still a young team. They've won a lot of games in a row. I was kind of expecting them to like kind of falter somewhere. So I'm not saying that the Rams are no good after this game, but the interesting part is, once again, Case Keenum looks good.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings look good. And it just further, you know, last week it was who should start, Case Keenum or Bridgewater. Now the question is more not who should start, but like, do you pull Case Keenum if he looks bad? So now the conversation has switched from should he start? Now it's he's going to start, but if he looks bad, do you pull him? And I think Case Keenum has deserved to start out the rest of the year. He's gotten the Vikings to 8-2 record. I don't see them losing the rest of their games. I imagine they're going to get into the playoffs at least 11-5 if they go 3-3 the rest of the way. Detroit on Thanksgiving this week. It's going to be a tough one in Detroit. But, I mean, I see the Vikings having 11 wins. And if you stay with Keenum through the regular season, Bridgewater in the playoffs.
No, I don't think that you can. I mean, it would take some sort of Nathan Peterman type performance in the first half where I would, think about benching him. I think that you have to ride the hot hand now. Bridgewater, the thing is that when they drafted Bridgewater, and I think that the way that they think about Bridgewater is that he's the franchise QB. I don't know necessarily that you feel the same way about Case Keenum. He could prove it. I mean, they could have themselves a conundrum at the end of the year. I don't know exactly what the contracts are. I know Bridgewater's still under contract. I don't know what kind of deal Case Keenum signed. He actually played for the Rams last year and looked inept, at times before they put Jared Goff in there. But I think that's more about like Jeff Fisher than anything else.
Yes.
Because now all of a sudden you
see that's funny. That makes Jeff Fisher look even worse because now not only is Jared Goff playing well with the new coach,
right,
but Case Keenum is playing well with his new coach, and we don't even know if he's a guru. He's just not playing for Jeff Fisher anymore.
Right. That's the guru. The real guru here is don't play for Jeff Fisher.
The real guru is not Jeff Fisher.
Right. But it's a good story. I mean, it's good for the Vikings. I don't know why, but I like it when the Vikings are good.
I'm rooting for him. I'm a Mike Zimmer guy.
Okay.
He was the defensive coordinator for the Bengals for a few years, and I grew to like him. And I liked him a lot on Hard Knocks. So I'm a Zimmer guy. So I do root for the Vikings.
Okay.
And they got good. They have like the right theory. Good defense. They're still running the ball despite Dalvin Cook getting hurt.
Right.
Latavius Murray and Jerick McKinnon have came in and played pretty well in relief of Dalvin Cook.
Latavius Murray from UCF.
There you go. And Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen are pretty good. That's a really good offense. That's a really good team.
Yeah.
And you know what? Case Keenum is their quarterback, and you never really want to say that your worst player is your quarterback, but if your worst player is your quarterback, then if he just can manage it, you'll be fine.
Yeah, and I mean he hasn't looked bad. He's I don't know if it's necessarily because it's Adam Thielen and it's Stephon Diggs, which could be. I mean, best wide receiver tandem could be, but he's not turning the ball over. So it's not just on them being really good. You know what I mean? Like he's been really accurate. He's been really efficient. He's been good. He's warranted continuing to keep the job as long as it stays hot. The problem is Bridgewater is there behind him, and you're going to have people clamoring if he does have a bad game.
Right.
It's going to be like time to get him out of there.
All right. We'll get into more of the NFL. We got a lot more NFL and quick hits in the second segment. So we'll be right back.
Les Grossman.
We don't get money yet. Price now 100 million. Or tomorrow Simple Jack die.
Great. Let me get this down. 100 million. Oh, wait. I got a better idea.
Stay tuned to the couch on 247miami.tv.
Instead of 100 million, how about I send you a hobo's cheese? Skin the Go to town, man. Go to town.
No.
In the meantime, and as usual, go yourself.
Welcome back to the couch. We are coming to you live on 247miami.tv, broadcasting the events of this amazing city to the world. Follow on Twitter at 247miami, Miami on Facebook, and follow 247miami on Instagram, 247miami. Also, simulcasting on YouTube. You can find the link to that on the couch_MIA on Twitter, the couch_radio on Instagram. Yeah, go check it out. You can see our ugly faces. And, we are going to continue to get into the NFL because we did not wrap it up enough. I guess, our loyal listeners haven't had quite enough football talk just yet.
I haven't had enough football talk.
Okay.
Okay, so a couple of things that I wrote down here. Chiefs tumbling. So I didn't even realize, but the Chiefs have lost like 4 out of 5.
And against the Giants. What happened in that game?
Yeah, in a 12-9, in a 9-9 overtime game. Yeah, that was a debacle. And yeah, the Chiefs defense, I mean, I don't know really. I'm not sure. I haven't really seen. They were on national TV every single week for the first half of the season, and they were, 6-0, 6-1, whatever it was. And now I haven't really been seeing much of them, but apparently they're 6-4. So that's not good. They were looking like a powerhouse, and they went from the absolute top of the playoff picture to now they still are leading the AFC West. So they'll host a playoff game because the AFC West, other than them, they still have a 2-game lead on the AFC West.
Right. And what happened to that division? The Broncos.
Oakland was supposed to be good. The Broncos have been good for a while.
The Broncos are 3-7. I looked up and saw that stat, and I was shocked. 3-7. That season's done. Now they're saying so they had Trevor Siemian to begin the year. Osweiler back. They don't like what he's doing, so now I think they just named Paxton Lynch the starter.
Yeah,
they're just throwing stuff at the wall, hoping it sticks.
Yeah, they're going with Paxton Lynch this week. So I brought that up in my notes here too. It's just funny, every time there's a common theme in the NFL this year, which is whenever someone needs a quarterback, we bring up Colin Kaepernick. And this week you really saw some issues at quarterback. The Packers are in a downward spiral without Aaron Rodgers. Brett Hundley does not look very good. You saw that the Bills don't trust Tyrod, so they trot out Nathan Peterman,
right? And
he did not look very good. And the Broncos just named their 3rd starting quarterback of the year. So a lot of bad quarterback play out there, and and then you got the GQ Citizen of the Year still without a job. So that's troubling, at least.
Yeah. I look at some of these teams, especially like the Broncos, and it's like I don't understand what was happening with re-signing Brock Osweiler. I don't know who Paxton Lynch or Trevor Siemian are. That defense is 2 years removed from being one of the better defenses that we've ever seen and completely annihilating the Panthers in the playoffs, And
it's still a good defense.
But it doesn't matter because the offense is so inept. And now they're rotating C.J. Anderson and Trevor Booker. Is that Trevor Booker? Corey Booker? Devontae Booker?
No, shoot. Trevor might be right.
Trevor Booker.
No, it's not. It's Devontae.
Devontae Freeman, Devontae Booker, whatever.
Devontae. I think it's Devontae.
Anyways, I can't say 100% certain that Colin Kaepernick would be able to come in and be able to do any better than the rest of the guys. But, I mean, could he do much worse?
Yeah, okay. And that's, the thing we got to remember is the longer and longer Cap sits out of football, the less and less likely he becomes a better option.
Yeah. That's true.
But there's just like no, but you don't know unless you bring him into camp, and no one has brought him in to practice or camp or whatever you want to call it now that we're in the middle of the season. No one's even giving him a shot, and you're trotting out Paxton Lynch's, and you're trotting out Brock Osweiler's, and you're You're benching Deshaun Kaiser multiple times in favor of Chris Hogan. Like it's and he's not even getting a shot. And so that's the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think at this point, after the collusion stuff, him filing a lawsuit against the NFL,
Oh yeah, it's probably not helping his chances.
I think it's probably over, but you never know. Anything else from around the NFL that interested you?
Just the Eagles stay dominant, and the Saints are really good, and they were blowing teams out, and now they finally had a tough one, and they had to come back, and they were able to do that. So the Saints are looking like the head of the class. Well, the Eagles are the head of the class. The Eagles and the Saints are the head of the NFC right now. Oh, and also I mentioned that running game was going to keep Drew Brees healthy all year, which is exactly what it did.
Mm-hmm.
They were down 15 late in this game, and they needed Drew Brees to bring him back, and he was ready to do that because he hasn't been throwing it 40 times a game. So I think that really helped, and that is part of the reason the Saints are really good is because they are not relying on Drew Brees. Thus, when they need him, he's ready to go.
Okay. Should we do a little quick hits?
Yes.
Quick hits.
Okay, this week on Quick Hits, we have the Lavar Ball Donald Trump beef. Started with Donald Trump was a little upset that Lavar Ball didn't thank him for getting LeAngelo Ball, son of Lavar, jail, and Trump tweeted like a 15-year-old high schooler, as he usually does. Should have left him in jail. They're ungrateful, this and that, this and that. It's just funny, but my main take from this whole thing is we keep letting Lavar win. Lavar just wins again. He's on CNN the other night just berating whoever this guy was that was interviewing him. He basically spent 90 seconds demanding that he thank him. I don't know if you saw that
I didn't
any of this interview. I don't know. It's just that's where America's at right now. Our president is feuding with a basketball dad, a celeb, internet star, or whatever you want to call him. Whatever LeVar Ball's fame is, like, what is he? What is LeVar Ball's title? What is his fame?
Professional agitator.
Professional agitator, NBA dad, and he's beefing with Trump, our president, and frankly, he looks better than Trump, and he's making our president look like an idiot, basically saying like, oh, what do I have to do? Go around thanking everyone for everything, which who really knows what kind of what Trump had to do with getting his kid out of jail.
Oh, I'm sure that he was in China at the time. You know what I mean? So obviously he's going to be talking to people about that. Do I think that he like swung some sort of like political hammer and got, maybe a little bit, but it's definitely like,
I'll tell you
it's
what,
a high profile thing. It already had the attention of the United States because of who about this. Would it be the same if it was just like some other normal people, some other basketball players that played for FIU? Probably not. It wouldn't have got the attention, and they probably would have been in jail. But if they hadn't been released, it would have been a huge stink. It would have been an international incident.
I think that LeVar Ball has more pull right now. Not more pull than Donald Trump, but the Ball family is big enough to where China knew who these kids were.
Right.
Or China knew who LeAngelo Ball was. China knows who LeVar Ball is. I don't think they so much needed Trump. I think Trump maybe maybe made a phone call. If it wasn't LeVar Ball's kid, maybe Trump's phone call doesn't do anything.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? So I
think
don't know. It was just another instance where we got Lavar Ball doing a national TV interview and calling out the president of our United States. It's just the circus that is our politics and Lavar Ball back in action.
And so Donald Trump came back and tweeted again. I guess maybe this was after the CNN interview. Shoplifting is a very big deal in China, as it should be. 5 to 10 years in jail, but not to Father Lavar. Should have gotten his son out during my next trip to China. China told them they were released. Very ungrateful.
Speaking of Donald Trump, I didn't write this down, but also he also called out Marshawn Lynch this weekend because Marshawn Lynch, that game was in Mexico,
right?
And Marshawn Lynch stood for the Mexican anthem and kneeled for the American national anthem. And Donald Trump tweeted that Marshawn Lynch should be suspended, and if he does it again, he should be suspended for the rest of the year. And that's another thing where Trump, he just tweets like, I just picture him, he's just like this gossiping 15-year-old girl. And like the end of his tweet is Marshawn Lynch should be suspended, NFL attendance and ratings down. Like kind of, I don't know. And then I saw a tweet from someone who kind of, quoted Donald Trump's tweet to Marshawn and tweeted at him, "Haven't seen you call out Popovich, Steve Kerr, or someone else. Someone else. There was a third name on there, but it basically said like, I haven't seen you call out Popovich or Steve Kerr yet. Yet you call out Marshawn Lynch every time he does something. You call out, all the other black NFL athletes that protest, but never says anything about Steve Kerr and Greg Popovich, who have called him out. Greg Popovich has called him out multiple times.
Oh yeah. We talked about
we talked about that
Greg
where he
Popovich rants.
Called him like almost an idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that honestly, the world would be a much better place if somebody would just take away Donald Trump's Twitter.
Yeah.
It would probably be a better place if Twitter didn't exist anyways.
Yeah.
But I enjoy Twitter. I like to go on there, see what's going on in the world. It's basically like my primary news source now.
Right.
It's real time, up to date, baby. Boom. You get stuff as quick as possible.
Okay. So,
do you think that LeVar Ball and Donald Trump are going to end up in a wrestling ring during his presidential tenure? That's a real question.
I love that that's a real question. It's absolutely a real question, and I love it. And wow, like that would be amazing. That would be amazing.
It's
you want to talk about generating revenue for this country or some kind of charity relief pay-per-view? Yeah.
LeVar Ball versus Donald Trump. Iron cage match.
Wow. There was someone else that thought something. I heard it would be funny if Trump, some pay-per-view fight. Jerry Jones, Roger Goodell.
Oh yeah.
That would be good. That would be good.
That could be the undercard.
Yeah.
For the president fighting LeVar Ball.
Fighting LeVar Ball.
Unbelievable. So we would like to discuss a little bit of college football.
Yes, college football, not so much the actual football part of it, but on the sideline antics. Baker Mayfield, quarterback for the Oklahoma Sooners. You may have seen some videos of him grabbing his crotch and telling the opposing team that they could go play with themselves. He's a little wily. He's fiery, and
I believe he had an
they're
incident.
trying to take him down.
I believe he had an incident where he got tased by a cop for running around drunk.
Yeah, he's been arrested, and
he planted a flag in the center of the field during a game earlier in the year.
Right, at Ohio State in the middle of their O. No, he's got a reputation that definitely precedes him, but I think this instance is getting blown out of proportion, considering he was getting instigated by Kansas all game. It started out with the pregame coin toss handshake that wasn't, because
I saw that.
He went to go shake Kansas's captain's hands, and they gave him the cold shoulder, and he kind of clapped in their face, and then started playing football and was, he's a lot better at football than them. So then he was with them across the field with hand gestures and also the F-bomb. And then he yelled to the sideline, you guys have one win. Go cheer on basketball, which is very true. Nothing he said is wrong.
Yeah.
But so in the aftermath, Oklahoma has done the old college suspension, the old 1-play or 2-play suspension where guys get suspended for a drive.
Is that what they're doing?
That's what they're doing. So he won't be a captain. It is senior night. So there is some significance to not being a captain because it's Oklahoma's senior night. He seemed pretty shook up about that in his in a press conference he did like either today or yesterday. He was like actually like shedding tears about not being a captain for his senior night. He won't start. The backup quarterback will probably come in and hand it off once or twice, and then he'll come in. But I think that this is all being blown out of proportion.
I thought it was, I mean, it's pretty mild-mannered. I guess the fact that it's in college.
Look, and that's the problem. That's the problem with they want these kids to like uphold all this professionalism, but they're not professionals,
Right,
and
they're
they don't
amateurs.
see any of this industry that is college football. They don't see any of it, but they can't, show a little character, and they got to be all buttoned up, even though they're amateurs. Problem I have with this is that, they've basically, the organization or the school of, stuff in their past with Barry Switzer and, all the stuff from the 80s with all that, like
The Boz.
the recruiting stuff and all that. Yeah. So they're not the cleanest people. And so basically what they did was they reprimanded Baker Mayfield for something that I didn't think was very serious. And what you ended up with was Baker Mayfield at a press conference, like really, really down and really brought down by this. And they reprimanded him, and they really kind of took his pride. And, he was standing at this podium crying and talking about how sorry he is. And should have been brought into that point. I don't think that the punishment fits the crime. And even if the punishment does fit the crime, even though it's barely a suspension and, oh boy, he won't be a captain to start the game, it is his senior night. It's just, I don't believe Baker Mayfield deserved to be standing up in front of the media shedding tears because he grabbed his crotch.
Yeah,
in the heat of the moment.
I think it's because it was caught on television. It got blown out of proportion. It got blown up all over social media. It probably was on ESPN. So the school's doing what they feel like what they have to do to save face, to say we don't accept this kind of thing. I mean, let's all move past it. It's not a big deal. I don't think it's a big deal.
I mean, hey, look, no, it's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. But you did have this broken kid in tears in front of the national media over what?
No, I know.
They kind of broke that kid.
And I agree. But, there's nothing they can do about it now. I mean.
Yeah, it's another example of, this billion-dollar industry. And what does Baker Mayfield get? His pride taken away?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you had one more quick hit.
Well, I was just going to give a little update on so the University of Miami remains undefeated. We were talking about the college football playoff rankings show that came out last week, and they were named number 3.
Right.
Was that shocking to you that a one-loss Clemson, who they share a common opponent with, who beat Clemson and University of Miami beat? What are your thoughts on that?
Clemson was without their quarterback in that game. I haven't seen much of Clemson since that game. Has Kelly Bryant been playing really well? I think the whole idea of this human committee is to be able to implement common sense. Back when the BCS, we just had the computers crunching numbers, and you had no like real logical reasoning in the room, right? I think it's still early. I think it's better for Miami to be third because if it's Miami 3, Clemson 2 going into the ACC championship game, I think it gives Miami an edge.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying I don't think Miami still has to. It doesn't matter. Miami 3, Miami 2, Clemson 2, Clemson 3. Whoever wins the ACC championship game is getting in the playoff, and the other one is not.
Right.
Right. That seems what it's. So
I
it doesn't
think so.
matter.
There's different ways that I think that one of the two could still make it, or I guess Miami could still potentially make it. Like 2-loss Clemson isn't going to make it.
But 1-loss Miami could?
I think it's possible depending on the way that the rest of the stuff shakes out. Like if it's a really close game, it's a really good game, it's a possibility. You know what I mean? Like depending on how the SEC shakes out and things like that.
I think that Bama, if Auburn beats Bama, they go to the SEC championship game, right?
I don't know how. I don't know.
I believe so.
So
So you could have 1-loss Bama not playing in an SEC championship game,
right?
They are still going to get in the playoff because I don't know. 1-loss Bama gets in my opinion.
I think they do.
And then you could have Auburn. Yeah, it could really get shaken up if Auburn wins the Iron Bowl and then wins the SEC championship game. They're going to get in, and then you got to see if Bama still gets in. That'll get interesting.
Right, that'll be interesting. One thing that I don't necessarily disagree with 2 or 3. I think that it's questionable whether or not they should be there at 2 or at 3. You could make an argument why, but you say that like the human eye test for people to be able to do it, to be able to look at stuff and be able to determine, like, as opposed to computer spitting stuff out. But we have a UCF team that is undefeated, is going to go to the championship potentially if they beat USF this Friday, which is a game that I'm going to. And they were ranked number, I think is there 4 undefeated teams left in the country, or is there 3?
Wisconsin, Bama, UCF,
and UM. So they're one of the 4, and I don't think that they're going to get any higher than like 12th or 10th in the playoff rankings.
And I'm not sure that they deserve to be in the college football playoff. Again, you mentioned the eye test and having logical reason. I think most people can agree UCF, when it's all said and done, shouldn't be a top 4 team in the country. You mentioned also with the eye test, like with Miami being undefeated and should they be higher than Clemson? In my opinion, Miami didn't have a convincing win until the Virginia Tech game and then the Notre Dame game. Like Miami is what, 10-0 or whatever they were before Virginia Tech. They were 7-0 without a real good win. They were squeaking by they barely beat North Carolina, who had 1 win. Like they weren't very convincing. Then they beat Virginia Tech. Okay, then they beat Notre Dame. So I'm okay with them being in the top 4. I just don't know if they have to be over Clemson or not.
Yeah, and that's why I said it's quite, either way, one or the other, 2 or 3, it's not that big of a deal, and it's going to shake itself out. But I do think that the playoffs need to be expanded so that a team that's not in the Power 5, like UCF, go undefeated all the way throughout the season, there's a potential that they can at least get into some sort of a playoff so that we can see.
No.
If they get in as the 8th seed and they lose to the 1 seed, fine. That's the way, that's fine. But only having 4 teams when there's 5 power conferences and then a whole slew of other conferences that are outside it that are never going to be, they don't have a chance to crack it. It doesn't matter. If they beat USF on Friday and if they win their conference championship for the AAC, they're not going to get any higher than 9th.
You're probably right.
So I just think,
Hey, and if you say they only get to 9, then they wouldn't even make an 18 playoff.
Well, right. So it's still flawed. Anyways,
Okay.
We'll be back with some segments.
Okay, and that was a very quick break. We're going to get right back into it. Before we get to Simple Jack, Simple Jack and the Couch is brought to you by BeastDFS.com, your one-stop shop for daily fantasy analytics. The Beast DFS contains critical, valuable, and insightful information necessary when creating daily fantasy lineups in NFL and NBA. Go to BeastDFS.com and download your copy of the Beast Junior for free today. BeastDFS.com, and now it's time for Simple Jack.
Everybody knows you never go full retard.
Goodbye, Mama. Now you can have ice cream in heaven. I'll see you tonight when I go to bed in my head movies. But this head movie, Eyes Rain.
You went full retard, man. Never go full retard.
That is correct, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to what some people might say is Daylene Curtis's favorite segment.
Never heard of her.
Well, don't Google it if you're at work. Simple Jack. This week's Simple Jack comes to us out of Apple Valley, California, courtesy of the Associated Press. And it's a little different. Little spin on Simple Jack this week. Normally we get like dumb criminals who are doing dumb stuff, people that quite often are fondling themselves in public or something of that nature.
Yes.
This one's going to be a little bit different. A 61-year-old limo driver and self-taught rocket scientist plans to launch a homemade steam-powered rocket ship over a ghost town on Saturday with him in it.
Okay.
He has built himself a steam-powered rocket, and he's going to propel himself into the air. The guy's name is Mad Mike Hughes. He has spent roughly $20,000 in the last few years building his rocket out of spare parts in his garage, and plans to travel around a mile in distance once he's up in the air and reach speeds of up to 500 miles per hour in this homemade rocket. It's the first step of his long-term goal of building a rocket to propel him into outer space so that it can prove that the Earth is flat. One of the quotes from Mad Mike Hughes is, "I don't believe in science." He said, "I know about aerodynamics and how things move through the air, but that's not science. That's just a formula. There's no difference between science and science fiction." So Mad Mike wants to prove. He wants to. So this is his first rocket. He's going to try to build another rocket after he builds this first rocket. Mad Mike will be blasting off in his rocket this Saturday at 2 p.m. And while he has discouraged fans from showing up to the site of the launch, it will be broadcast on YouTube. So everybody can tune in and potentially watch Mad Mike Hughes die this weekend when he launches himself in a homemade rocket that he made in his garage.
Story. They make movies about stuff like that. There's a few things here. I love that he's a proclaimed self-taught rocket scientist.
Yeah, I taught myself rocket science.
So I just taught myself rocket science. So, hey, it's not rocket science. Also, where ghost town? He's gonna fly over a ghost town. What is it like? That's a town just with ghosts?
No, it's like an abandoned town that some other wealthy entrepreneur that is into like aerospace engineering and stuff like that bought. It's basically an uninhabited town. It's a ghost town.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna try and read this real quick. It's W Knows All presented by Matt. We're finishing up right here, last minute of the show. All right. If your nearest Waffle House is closed, you should probably seek shelter because the 24-hour chain only shuts down during absolute devastation. In fact, FEMA unofficially determines the severity of natural disasters by whether or not local Waffle Houses are open. They call this the Waffle House Index.
Nice.
So if your local Waffle House is closed, or hurricanes in the area, or something just passed through and everything's all shut down. So yeah, it's the Waffle House Index, and it determines the severity of a natural disaster.
Nice.
All right, so that's been the couch. Any last final thoughts that we'll leave you with? Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to all the loyal listeners out there.
All right,
and everybody on the interwebs.
I'll be sending a free turkey to everyone who listened to this show. But there is a disclaimer. All right, so some good football this weekend. See you next week.
See you next week, everybody.